The worst mistake of my life happened because of a misunderstanding, and one very large alpha king. In the Blackridge territory, there is a tradition. If you kneel in front of someone, offer them a silver ring and say the words, "Choose me," you are proposing. Unfortunately, I did not know that. I thought it was just a polite way to thank someone for saving your life. So when Alpha King Cassian Veylor pulled me away from a rogue attack and nearly carried me across the entire forest like I weighed nothing, I panicked. I knelt. I offered him the silver ring from my medicine pouch, and I said the words, "Choose me." The entire pack went silent. Someone dropped a spear, and the most terrifying alpha in the region slowly looked down at the ring in his hand, then back at me. For a moment I thought he was angry, until the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. That was when I learned two things. First, I had accidentally proposed to the Alpha King, and second, he had absolutely no intention of letting me take it back. The rogue's body hit the ground with a sickening thud. Mira stumbled backward, her back slamming against a tree as she watched the massive wolf shake blood from its muzzle. Silver fur, crimson eyes, muscles that moved like water over steel. Alpha King. She knew those eyes anywhere. Every child in Blackridge grew up hearing stories about them. The wolf who ate rogues for breakfast, and alphas for sport. The wolf turned. Mira's breath stopped. Oh no, his muzzle was still stained with rogue blood. His chest heaved. And those crimson eyes, impossibly ancient, impossibly dangerous, were fixed directly on her. She should run. She should scream. Instead, her knees buckled. "Thank you," she gasped, dropping to the forest floor. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Her shaking hands fumbled at her medicine pouch. A gift. She needed to offer a gift. That's what you did when someone saved your life. That's what... Her fingers closed around something small and cold. A ring. The silver band she'd found last moon cycle. The one with tiny wolves etched along its surface. She'd been saving it for trade, for herbs, for... "Choose me." The words tumbled out before her brain could catch up. "Choose me? Choose me." The forest went silent. Mira stared at the ring in her palm, then at the Alpha King, then at the ring again. The massive silver wolf was watching her. Those crimson eyes had gone impossibly still, and behind her, a sharp intake of breath. Mira turned her head slowly. 20 wolves stood at the tree line, pack warriors, their faces frozen in varying degrees of shock. One young fighter's mouth hung open so wide a bird could have nested there. Someone whispered, "Did she just—" "She did," another breathed. "The ring." She knelt. She said the words. Mira's stomach dropped through the earth. In Blackridge tradition, you never kneel in front of the Alpha King unless you are pledging loyalty or proposing. "Oh, goddess," she whispered. "Oh, goddess, no, I didn't. That's not... This is just a..." The silver wolf moved. Mira flinched as massive paws landed inches from her knees. Fur brushed against her trembling hands. Hot breath ghosted across her face. Then the wolf shifted. Bone cracked, muscle reformed. Fur melted into skin. And where the beast had stood, a man now towered over her. Tall, impossibly tall. Broad shoulders that blocked the moonlight. Dark hair falling across a face that belonged in the kind of legends mothers warned their daughters about. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and those eyes, still crimson, still ancient, still fixed on her, holding something she couldn't name. He was naked. Of course he was naked. Wolves didn't shift with clothes. Mira's face erupted into flames. She stared at the forest floor like it contained the secrets of the universe. "You," his voice rolled through her like thunder, "are bleeding. What? Mira looked down. A gash ran across her forearm. Deep. Ugly. She hadn't even felt it. It's fine. I have herbs. I can. Strong fingers wrapped around her wrist. Mira's heart stopped. His skin was hot, burning hot, the kind of heat that seeped into bones and made muscles forget how to function. He turned her arm slowly, examining the wound with an intensity that made her feel like he was memorizing every freckle, every scratch. I said, "Choose me," she blurted, desperate to break the silence. "But I didn't mean it's a figure of speech. People say that all the time. Choose me for healing. Choose me for friendship." His gaze lifted from her arm, met her eyes. One dark eyebrow rose approximately 1 millimeter. Friendship. Mira wanted to die. "Friendship," he repeated. "Yes, exactly. Platonic, completely non-romantic, just two friends hanging out friendship. I was thanking you for saving my life, obviously, and in my culture, which is totally normal and not at all made up, we offer rings to people who... The ring. Right, the ring." It was still in her palm, pressed against her skin, tiny wolves dancing in the moonlight. Mira tried to close her fingers. He was faster. The ring vanished from her hand. She watched in horror as the Alpha King held it up to the moonlight, examining it like it was the most fascinating thing he'd seen all century. "It's not. That's not. I found it. In the mud. It's probably cursed. It's silver. It's nothing. Wolves don't wear silver." His voice dropped. "Unless they're claimed." Mira's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Someone behind them coughed. She'd forgotten about the warriors, 20 wolves, 20 witnesses, all watching their Alpha King stand naked in the moonlight holding a ring while a healer's apprentice had a mental breakdown at his feet. "I can explain," she whispered. "Can you?" "No." Then he slid the ring onto his smallest finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it fit perfectly. "Don't." Mira lurched to her feet. "You can't just... That's mine." "I'll give it back." He looked down at her. She was not short. She was average height, perfectly reasonable height. But standing next to him, she felt like a child who'd wandered into a room full of adults and accidentally sat on the king's throne. "You offered it to me." "I offered it as a thank you." "While kneeling?" "I was weak. I'd just been attacked." And speaking the words. "Choose me" is a common phrase. Is it? Yes. Among humans, perhaps. He turned the ring on his finger. Among wolves, it means something else. Mira wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to crawl into a hole and never emerge. Instead, she did what any reasonable person would do when facing the most powerful wolf in the Northern Territories. She argued, "Well, I'm not a wolf, so it doesn't count." Silence. Behind her, someone choked. On the Alpha's eyes glinted. Something shifted in his expression. Something that looked dangerously close to amusement. "You're not a wolf. No. You live in Blackridge territory. That's... yes, but surrounded by wolves. That doesn't... eating our food, breathing our air, living under our protection." Mira's jaw tightened. "I'm a healer. I earn my keep. By offering rings to strange wolves in forests. I've explained that 3 times. And yet," he stepped closer, "I'm still confused." He wasn't confused. His eyes said he understood exactly what had happened. His mouth said he was enjoying every second of her suffering. Mira's hands curled into fists. "Let me make this simple." She forced herself to meet his gaze. "It was a mistake, a misunderstanding, a complete and total accident. I'm asking you, politely, to forget it happened." Forget. Yes. You want me to forget that a healer knelt in front of my entire pack, offered me a ring, and asked me to choose her. When you say it like that, it's exactly what happened. Because of a cultural misunderstanding. You've lived here 3 years. Mira's mouth snapped shut. He knew how long she'd lived here. He knew how I know everything that happens in my territory. The way he said it, low, intimate, like a secret meant only for her, made something twist in her chest. She didn't like it. She didn't like him. You're enjoying this. I'm enjoying this? His head tilted. I just killed 3 rogues. My arm is bleeding, and a woman is screaming at me about friendship while standing in the middle of a crime scene. A pause. Define enjoying. Mira opened her mouth. The healer proposed to the Alpha King. The shout came from somewhere in the pack, followed by laughter, followed by someone else yelling, "Did she really kneel? I missed it. Someone describe it." Mira's face burned. The Alpha didn't move, didn't react, just stood there, impossibly calm, watching her squirm like a cat watching a mouse. "If you just give me back the ring, it's mine now." "It's not. Witnesses heard you." The words hit her like ice water. Mira stared at him, at the ring on his finger, at the 20 wolves behind her who had definitely, absolutely, unforgettably heard everything. "You can't be serious." "I'm always serious." "You're..." She gestured wildly at his naked body, standing there, naked, with my ring, refusing to give it back. "I'm Alpha King. Now I do what I want." "That's not how the world works." "It's exactly how my world works." Mira made a sound of pure frustration. It came out somewhere between a growl and a scream, and a very undignified squeak. One warrior whispered loudly, "I think she's having a stroke." Another whispered back, "That's what happens when you accidentally marry the king." "I didn't marry him." "Proposal's the first step," someone offered helpfully. "There's not going to be a second step." "How do you know?" The Alpha's voice slid through her rage like honey through silk. "Maybe I want a second step." Mira's brain stopped working. He was still watching her, still calm, still wearing that tiny hint of something that might, if she squinted and ignored all survival instincts, be called fondness. "You're mocking me." "I'm considering my options." "Your options?" He stepped back. "Walk her home." The command came so suddenly that Mira didn't process it until 2 warriors appeared at her sides. "What? No, I don't need... I can walk myself. You're bleeding. There are rogues in the forest." The Alpha looked at her. "You'll be escorted." "That's not necessary. It wasn't a request." His voice hadn't changed, hadn't risen, but something in it made the warriors straighten, made the forest feel smaller, made Mira's protest die in her throat. This was the Alpha King, the wolf who ate rogues for breakfast, the man who just accepted a proposal she never meant to make. He turned away, walked toward the tree line, toward the pack that parted for him like water around stone. Mira watched him go, watched the moonlight trace the muscles of his back, the blood still wet on his skin, the ring glinting on his finger. He stopped, didn't turn around, but his voice carried back to her, soft and certain and absolutely infuriating. "I'll return the ring when you mean it." Then he was gone, and Mira stood in the forest, surrounded by wolves, her arm bleeding, her heart pounding, her entire life completely and utterly destroyed. The warrior on her left cleared his throat. "So," he said carefully, "you're the future Luna." "I'm not." "Does she know she's shouting at a dead man?" the other warrior whispered. "She's not going to kill me." "The Alpha will." When he finds out we let his mate bleed to death in the woods. She's not his. She offered him a ring while kneeling in front of witnesses. The warrior shrugged. That's a proposal. That's binding. That's done. Mira stared at him. He stared back. He's going to come for you, the warrior added helpfully. Probably tomorrow. He's patient like that. Mira's knees went weak again. Tomorrow. The Alpha King was coming tomorrow to talk about the proposal she never meant to make, the proposal he refused to let her take back. I'll return the ring when you mean it. Mira looked at the spot where he'd disappeared, looked at the ring on her own empty finger, looked at the future stretching out before her. Chaotic, impossible, filled with a man who smiled like he'd already won. For the first time in her life, Mira Solene had absolutely nothing to say. Mira didn't sleep. She lay in her cot, staring at the ceiling of her tiny healer's hut, replaying every mortifying second of the previous night. Kneeling. The ring. Choose me, she pressed her palms against her burning face. I'll return the ring when you mean it. What did that even mean? When she meant it. She would never mean it. She meant it less than she'd meant anything in her entire life. She meant it approximately negative 10,000%. Dawn couldn't come soon enough. Except dawn came, and with it, a knock at her door. Mira shot upright, heart slamming against her ribs. Her hair was a disaster. Her clothes were wrinkled. She probably had pillow marks on her. Another knock. I'm coming, she yelped. 1 second. Just give me. She grabbed her cloak, threw it on. Took exactly half a second to regret every life choice that had led her to this moment. Then she opened the door, and there he was, the Alpha King, leaning against her doorframe like he owned it, which he did. He owned everything, including her, apparently, according to pack law. He'd dressed this time, black tunic, dark trousers, boots that probably cost more than she made in a year. His hair was still damp from whatever river he'd bathed in, curling slightly at the ends. The ring glinted on his finger. Mira's eye twitched. You're here, she said flatly. Good morning to you too. It's barely dawn. The sun is up. Barely. I'm an early riser. He pushed off the doorframe, looking past her into the hut. Small. It's not small. Oh, it's cozy. It's the size of my bathing chamber. Then go bathe somewhere else. His eyes snapped back to her. Something flickered in them. Surprise, maybe, or amusement at being spoken to like a person instead of a king. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Everyone else is. Then everyone else is dramatic. Mira crossed her arms. What do you want? I told you. I'm returning the ring. Her heart stuttered. You, really? When you mean it, the stutter flatlined. That's not, you said, you can't just, she sucked in a breath. Listen, I need to explain. Last night was a mistake. A huge, embarrassing, completely understandable mistake that anyone could have made. No one else has made it. Because no one else is stupid enough to kneel in front of you with jewelry. He was watching her mouth. Why was he watching her mouth? You admitted stupidity, progress. I didn't. That's not. Mira grabbed fistfuls of her own hair. You're doing this on purpose. You're enjoying this. I told you last night, define enjoying. I define it as the look on your face right now. The one that says you're having the best morning of your life while I'm having the worst. His lips twitched. Actually twitched. The Alpha King, the most feared wolf in the Northern Territories, was smiling at her because of her suffering. I'm going to kill you, Mira said calmly. I'm going to poison your dinner and watch you die slowly. Threatening the king, bold strategy. I'm a healer. I know which herbs won't show up in an autopsy. Something shifted in his gaze. The amusement didn't disappear, but something else joined it. Something that made her skin feel too warm. You're interesting. I'm furious. Same thing, usually. He stepped past her into the hut, just walked right in. Like he owned it, which he did. Mira spun around, sputtering. You can't just... This is my home. It's my territory. That's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. He looked around at her herbs, her drying racks, her single chair by the cold hearth. You live alone. Yes, no family. My mother died. My father... She stopped. That's none of your business. He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment the playful mask slipped, revealing something underneath she couldn't quite name. No, he agreed quietly. It's not. Silence. Awkward, heavy, too long silence. Mira cleared her throat. You should leave. I should. Are you going to? No. Why not? Because we have things to discuss. We have nothing to discuss. I explained the mistake. You heard the explanation. The end. The end? He turned to face her fully. You think it ends that easily? Yes. That's exactly how mistakes work. You say oops and move on. This isn't oops. This is tradition. This is pack law. This is... He held up the ring. Binding. Mira stared at the silver band, at the tiny wolves etched along its surface, at his finger, wrapped around it like it belonged there. It's not binding if both parties agree it was an accident. Both parties don't agree. Yes, they... She stopped, froze. Wait. He waited. You think it wasn't an accident? I think... He stepped closer, just one step, but in her tiny hut, and it felt like the entire world shrinking. That you knelt, you offered a ring, you said the words, in front of witnesses. Because I panicked. Did you? Yes. Then why? Another step. She could smell him now, pine and smoke and something wild. Did you choose me? Mira's brain short-circuited. What? You were attacked. Rogues. Blood. Fear. His voice dropped. And when I saved you, you didn't run, didn't scream, didn't fight. Those ancient eyes held hers. You knelt. You offered me something precious. You asked me to choose you. That doesn't mean. It means something. It means I have terrible survival instincts. It means... He reached out, touched her chin, just barely. Just enough to make her breath catch. Somewhere, under all that panic and denial, your wolf knew what it wanted. Mira jerked back. Oh, I don't have a wolf. No. Something flickered in his gaze. You don't. The way he said it, like it mattered, like it was important, like he'd been thinking about it all night. Mira didn't know what to do with that look. So she did what she always did when overwhelmed. She got angry. Let me make this simple. She poked his chest, his very solid, very warm, very close chest. I don't want to marry you. I don't want to be Luna. I don't want to spend the rest of my life being laughed at by an entire pack because I made one stupid mistake. So take the ring. Keep it. Sell it. Throw it in the river. I don't care. Just stop treating this like it's real. He looked down at her finger, still pressed against his chest. You're touching me. Mira snatched her hand back like she'd been burned. I was making a point. By touching the king. She made a strangled sound. Are you always like this? Like what? Impossible. No. His head tilted. Usually I'm worse. Mira opened her mouth. He's in there. The shout came from outside, followed by running feet, followed by a crowd of pack members gathering at her door. Mira froze. The alpha didn't move. She's alive, someone yelled. "They're both alive. The bet continues." "Bet?" Mira whispered. "What bet?" The question came from Cassian, but his voice had changed, sharpened. Gone was the playful king teasing a flustered healer. In its place stood the alpha, dangerous, watchful, listening. The crowd went silent. A young warrior stepped forward. Mira recognized him, the one from last night, and the one who'd whispered about her being the future Luna. He swallowed hard. "There's a bet, sire." "Explain." On how long until she admits defeat?" Mira's mouth fell open. "Defeat," Cassian repeated. "Surrender. Acceptance. The wedding." The warrior shifted nervously. "Some say a week, some say a month. Old Marta put down 5 silver on before the next moon." Silence. Absolute, complete, deafening silence. Then, "A bet," Cassian said slowly. "Yes, sire. On my future mate." The warrior winced. "Technically, yes. And who's running this bet?" More silence. Then from the back of the crowd, "That would be me." The wolves parted. An old woman shuffled forward. Gray hair, wrinkled face, eyes sharp as knives. She leaned on a cane and looked up at the Alpha King like he was a misbehaving grandson. "Old Marta," Cassian said flatly. "Alpha." She nodded. "You're disrupting my morning. I had coins to collect. You're betting on my love life. Someone has to make profit from this disaster." She squinted at Mira. She's pretty, in a scrawny, human sort of way. 3 silver says she lasts 2 weeks. "I'm standing right here," Mira said. Old Marta ignored her completely. Cassian stared at the old woman for a long moment. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. The sound rolled through the clearing, deep and unexpected, startling birds from nearby trees. Wolves blinked at each other. Old Marta's eyebrows rose. "You," Cassian said, pointing at her, "are banned from gambling. That's never stopped me before. It will this time." "Will it?" "Yes. We'll see." Mira watched this exchange with growing horror. They were discussing her, like she wasn't there, like she was a particularly interesting weather pattern. "I'm right here," she repeated. Everyone ignored her. "The odds," Cassian said thoughtfully. "What are they?" Mira's brain made a static noise. "Sire?" The young warrior blinked. "The odds for the bet. What are they?" 3 to 1 on the first moon, 5 to 1 on the second, 10 to 1 if she holds out past winter. "Those are terrible odds." "Would you like to place a wager, sire?" Mira lunged forward. "No. No wagering. No betting. No discussing me like I'm not standing right here, breathing the same air as all of you." Cassian looked at her. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a gold coin, flipped it to the young warrior. 50 gold on she admits it by the next full moon. The warrior caught it, stared. Sire, that's a fortune." "I'm aware." "You're betting on me?" Mira shrieked. "On your surrender." Cassian smiled, that terrible, wonderful, infuriating smile. "I have confidence in my methods." "Your methods? What methods?" "There are no methods. There's nothing to surrender to." "We'll see." "We won't see." "There's nothing to see," old Marta cackled. Mira wanted to die. The crowd was buzzing now, whispering, shoving each other, pulling out coins. Someone was writing things down. Someone else was arguing about the odds. A small child tugged on her mother's sleeve and asked, "Is that the lady who's going to be queen?" Mira made a sound like a dying animal. Cassian heard it. His eyes found hers. And for just a moment the amusement faded into something softer. Something that looked almost like, "You're really upset," he said quietly. "Yes, I'm upset. Not about the bet." "What?" You're upset because you think this is a joke." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You think I'm playing with you, humiliating you, treating your mistake like entertainment." Mira's throat tightened. "Aren't you?" "No." "Then what? I'm giving you time." "Time for what?" His hand touched her chin again, gentle, unavoidable. "Time to realize it wasn't a mistake." Mira's heart stopped. "Time to understand why you knelt, why you chose me, why—" His thumb brushed her jaw. "Your heart was pounding when I touched you just now." "It was not." "It was." His eyes held hers. "I can hear it." Wolves. They could hear heartbeats, and Mira had never hated that fact more than in this moment. "That doesn't mean anything," she whispered. "It means everything." He released her, stepped back, raised his voice to the crowd. "The bet stands, but anyone caught harassing my future mate loses their wagered coins and spends a month on latrine duty." Groans from the crowd. Mira barely heard them. "My future mate." He'd said it again, in front of everyone, like it was fact, like it was settled, like her opinion on the matter was nothing but a minor inconvenience. He turned to leave. "Wait." He stopped. Mira's hand shook at her sides. You can't decide this for me. You can't bet on me. You can't walk around calling me your future mate when I never agreed to any of it." Cassian looked at her over his shoulder. "Hun, I'm not deciding anything for you." His voice was quiet now, private, just for her. "I'm waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For you to catch up." Then he was gone, and Mira stood in the doorway of her tiny hut, surrounded by wolves placing bets on her love life, her heart pounding so loud she was sure they could hear it too. The young warrior approached carefully. "So, should I put you down for anything, just to make it interesting?" Mira looked at him, looked at the coin in his hand, looked at the crowd of wolves who had suddenly become very interested in her reaction. "I'll give you 50 gold, she said sweetly, "if you tell me exactly what he's planning." The warrior paled. "I can't. He'd kill me." "I'm a healer. I'd bring you back." "That's not reassuring." "It's not supposed to be." She turned and walked back into her hut, slammed the door, pressed her back against it, and slid down to the floor, head in her hands, heart in her throat, completely and utterly doomed. Because somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, the bets, the teasing, the impossible man who wouldn't take no for an answer, she'd realized something terrifying. When his thumb touched her jaw, when his eyes held hers, when he whispered about her heart, it hadn't been pounding from fear, and that, more than any bet, more than any proposal, more than any alpha king with ancient eyes and a dangerous smile, was the real problem. Outside, old Marta's voice carried through the wooden walls. 50 says she caves by the full moon. "You already said that." "That was for him. This is for me. Double or nothing." "You're insane." "I'm rich. There's a difference." Mira pressed her forehead to her knees and groaned. The next full moon was 2 weeks away, and the Alpha King had just bet 50 gold on her surrender. This time, she was absolutely, completely, definitely going to kill him. Mira made it exactly 4 hours before seeing him again. She was gathering herbs by the river when a shadow fell over her. "You're crushing the moon petal." She didn't look up. "I'm not crushing anything." "Your thumb is on the stem." Mira looked down. Her thumb was on the stem. She released it like it had burned her. I was flustered." He crouched beside her, too close, always too close. "Nervous? Thinking about someone?" "I was thinking about herbs." "Liar." Mira's head snapped toward him. Bad idea. He was right there, inches away. Those ancient eyes catching sunlight, turning gold at the edges, his mouth curved in that infuriating half-smile. "You're doing this on purpose," she said. "Doing what?" "Existing, nearby, breathing my air. It's my air, my territory." "Then breathe it somewhere else." He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched her with that terrible knowing gaze. "You have dirt on your nose." Mira's hand flew to her face. He caught her wrist, gentle, careful, his fingers wrapping around her skin like they belonged there. "Not that one." His thumb brushed her cheekbone, then lower, slower. "This one." Mira stopped breathing. The river rushed past. Birds called somewhere distant, but all she could hear was her own heartbeat, loud, traitorous, screaming in her ears. His thumb lingered on her skin. Then he released her. Standing smoothly, he looked down at her with that maddening smile. "You should be more careful. Dirt doesn't suit a future Luna." He walked away before she could respond. Mira sat there for a full minute, hand pressed to her cheek, a heart trying to escape her chest. This, she realized, is war. Day 2. She was delivering medicine to a pack mother when he appeared in the doorway. "Alara," he nodded at the woman, then looked at Mira. "Future Luna." Mira's jaw tightened. "My name is Mira." "I know." He leaned against the doorframe. "I prefer Future Luna. It's not my name. It will be. If I marry you, which I won't. Yet. Ever." He smiled. "We'll see." Alara watched this exchange like it was the most entertaining thing she'd witnessed in decades. Her youngest child tugged on Mira's sleeve. "Is he your boyfriend?" "No." "Yes," Cassian said at the same time. Mira spun on him. "Stop that." "Stop what?" "Stop." She gestured wildly. "Existing in my life." He considered this. "No." "Why not?" "Because." He pushed off the door frame, walking toward her with that easy, predatory grace. "I find you entertaining." "I'm not here for your entertainment. You're here, in my territory, breathing my air." He stopped inches away. "Everything here is for my entertainment." "Including me?" "Especially you." He didn't say it, but his eyes did. Mira's throat went dry. Alara coughed. "Should I leave you two alone?" "No," Mira said. "Yes," Cassian said. Mira left instead. Day 3, the warrior with the betting pool, Rafe, she'd learned, found her at the well. "He's asking about you." Mira dropped the bucket. "What?" "Rogan heard him talking to old Marta. Wanted to know your favorite food, your favorite season, whether you liked music." Mira stared. "Why?" Rafe shrugged. "Said he wanted to plan the wedding. There's not going to be a... He also wanted to know if you'd ever had someone serenade you." Mira's brain made a static noise. "He's not going to... He wouldn't actually... He's Alpha King. He does what he wants." Mira grabbed the bucket, hauled water, tried very hard not to imagine Cassian Veylor singing beneath her window. Failed completely. Day 4, she was checking a patient's wound when warm breath ghosted across her neck. "His fever's down." Mira jumped, elbowed something solid. Cassian grunted. "You..." She spun around. "You can't just sneak up on people." "I didn't sneak. I walked. You were focused. On my patient." The patient, a young wolf named Finn, looked between them with wide eyes. "Should I pretend to be asleep?" "Yes," Mira said. "No," Cassian said. And Finn closed his eyes anyway. Mira grabbed Cassian's arm and dragged him outside. "What is wrong with you?" "Many things. You'll learn them all eventually." "I don't want to learn them." I want you to leave me alone." He looked down at her hand, still wrapped around his forearm. "You're touching me again." Mira snatched her hand back. "You did that on purpose." "Did what?" "Came in there, breathed on my neck, made you what?" Flustered, nervous, hyper-aware of every inch of space between them. "Annoyed," she finished weakly. He didn't believe her. "You're a terrible liar." "I'm an excellent liar." "Your heart says otherwise." Mira pressed a hand to her chest. "You can't. That's cheating." "My senses aren't cheating. They're mine." "Then ignore them." "I don't want to." He stepped closer. "I like knowing what you feel." "What I feel is rage, pure, burning, homicidal rage." "Liar. I'll kill you." "Promise?" Mira made a sound of pure frustration and shoved him. He didn't move. She bounced off his chest like a bird hitting a window. "Was that?" He looked down at her, eyebrows raised. "An attack?" "That was murder. I'm just bad at it." His laugh rolled through the clearing. Genuine this time. Warm. Mira's traitorous heart did something complicated. "I like you," he said simply. "I hate you." "No." He touched her chin. "You don't." Then he walked away. Again, leaving her standing there, heart pounding, cheeks burning, absolutely furious that he was right. Day 5. She watched him with the pack. A child had fallen from a tree. Scraped knees, bruised pride, tears streaming. Oh, Cassian appeared before anyone could move. "Up you go." He lifted the boy easily, settled him on his hip. "Trees are tall. Gravity is mean. We'll get you patched up." The boy sniffled. "The healer lady will fix me?" "She will. She's the best." Cassian glanced at Mira. "She's also very pretty when she's angry." Mira choked on air. The boy looked at her. "Are you angry?" No, I'm not." "She's always angry at me." Cassian carried the boy toward her. "It's my favorite thing about her." Mira's face erupted into flames. But later, after she'd bandaged the boy and sent him running back to play, she watched Cassian from across the clearing. Saw him pause by old Marta's hut. Saw him stack firewood by her door without being asked. Saw Marta emerge, squint at the wood, squint at him. "Ah, you're trying to win favor with the elders." "I'm trying to make sure you don't freeze." "Same thing. Nothing gets past you." "Nothing ever has." She poked his chest with her cane. "You like this girl?" "I do." "You're going about it all wrong. Tell me something I don't know. Court her properly. Stop teasing. Start showing." Cassian was quiet for a moment. Then softly, "The teasing makes her come alive. The showing—" He glanced toward Mira. "That's for when she's ready to see it." Mira's breath caught. He knew she was watching. He knew, and he'd said it anyway. Day 6. He found her at dusk, by the river, the same spot from day 1. "You've been avoiding me. You've been finding me anyway. Territory, remember?" He sat beside her, close, but not touching. "What are you doing?" "Thinking." "About?" She looked at him, really looked, at the way moonlight softened his edges, at the ring still on his finger, at the man beneath the king. "You stacked wood for Marta." "Yes." "You carried that boy like he was your own." "He's pack." "You care about them." Something shifted in his gaze. "They're mine. Of course I care. It's not what everyone says. Everyone says I'm terrifying. Yes. Everyone says I'm dangerous. Yes. Everyone says I'd kill anyone who threatened my pack. Also yes." He turned to face her fully. "All of that is true, but so is this." He reached out, traced the line of her jaw, featherlight, reverent. "I would die for them, every single one, including you." Mira's eyes burned. No one had ever. You barely know me. I know you knelt when you were scared. I know you offered something precious without thinking. I know you argue with kings and threaten murder and pretend not to care when you care about everything. His thumb brushed her cheek. I know you're watching me with the pack. I know you're noticing things you didn't expect. I know you're fighting this war with yourself more than you're fighting me. Mira's voice came out broken. I don't want this. I know. I don't want to want you. I know that too. Then why? Because wanting. His forehead touched hers, gentle, intimate. Isn't a choice. It just is. And I've wanted you since the moment you knelt in that forest and asked me to choose you. Mira's eyes closed. Her heart raced. Her lips parted. And somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Cassian pulled back, just slightly, just enough to look at her with those ancient, knowing eyes. The pack is gathering. I don't care. You will. He stood, offered his hand. Come, watch me be terrifying. Then decide if you still want to kill me. Mira looked at his hand, looked at his face, looked at the future stretching out before her, still uncertain, still terrifying, but suddenly not as unwanted as she'd pretended. She took his hand, and when he smiled, really smiled, warm and bright and nothing like the fearsome Alpha King, Mira realized something terrifying. She was losing this war, and for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to win. The great hall stank of arrogance. Mira stood in the corner, pressed against cold stone, watching alphas from a dozen territories fill the space with their egos and their posturing. Furs draped over massive shoulders, gold glinting on thick fingers, eyes that sized up everything like prey. She didn't belong here. She knew it. Everyone knew it. But Cassian had asked her to come. Not commanded. Asked. Quietly, in that new way he'd developed since the river, since the almost moment, since everything had started shifting. Stay close to me. She'd rolled her eyes, scared I'll get lost, scared someone will try to take what's mine. The memory made her cheeks warm even now. What's mine? She wasn't his. She kept telling herself that, kept repeating it like a prayer, but her heart wasn't listening anymore. Oh, there you are. Rafe appeared at her elbow holding 2 cups of something that steamed in the cold air. I'm hiding. Obviously, he handed her a cup. Smart. These gatherings are mostly just alphas measuring. He paused. Territory. Mira snorted. That's not what you were going to say. It's what I should say. She took a sip. Spiced wine. Warm. Why did he want me here? Because he's obsessed with you? That's not. It's literally the only explanation. Rafe nodded toward the center of the hall. Look at him. Mira looked. Cassian stood surrounded by alphas, towering over most of them. His face was carved from stone. The fearsome king, the deadly wolf, the ruler everyone feared. But even from here she could see it, the way his eyes kept finding her, the way his shoulders relaxed slightly every time their gazes met, the way his hand touched the ring on his finger. Her ring, still there, always there. He hasn't taken that off, Rafe murmured. Not once, warriors noticed. It doesn't mean anything. It means everything, and you know it. Mira opened her mouth to argue. Well, well. The voice came from behind her, thick, oily, wrong. Mira turned. An alpha she didn't recognize stood too close, broad, bald, scars crossing his face like a map of violence. His eyes traveled over her in a way that made her skin crawl. You're the human, not a question. The one who fell to her knees for the king. Mira's spine straightened. I'm the healer, Mira. I know what you are. He stepped closer. I also know what you're not. Rafe moved. Alpha Voltan. Quiet, pup. Adults are speaking. Rafe's jaw tightened, but he stopped. Voltan circled her slowly, like she was meat, like she was something to be evaluated and found wanting. Pretty enough, I suppose. For a human. His lip curled, but no wolf, no power, no pack. He leaned in. What exactly does the king want with you? A warm body, a hole to... That's enough. Mira's voice cut through his words like a blade. Voltan's eyebrows rose. Excuse me. I said that's enough. She met his eyes, didn't flinch, didn't back down. You don't know me. You don't get to speak to me. And if you had any sense, you'd walk away before... Before what? He laughed. Before your boyfriend notices I'm talking to you? He's busy. Important wolves to impress. Deals to make. Another step closer. I'm sure he won't mind if I borrow you for a while. Humans are so useful. His hand reached for her arm. Mira jerked back. But before she could move, before she could breathe, before she could even think, the hall went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that happens when every living thing in a space suddenly stops breathing. Mira looked up. Cassian stood 10 feet away. She hadn't seen him move, neither had anyone else. But he was there now, and the air around him had changed. Thick, heavy, charged with something ancient and terrible. His eyes weren't gold anymore. They were crimson. Voltan's hand dropped. His face went pale. Alpha King, you were just touching what's mine. The words came out calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that preceded slaughter. Voltan swallowed hard. She's not. There's been a misunderstanding. Has there? Yes. And I was merely speaking to the human, paying my respects to your guest. Cassian moved. One step, that was all. But the floor seemed to shake. The air seemed to thicken. And behind him, Mira could see his warriors positioning themselves, cutting off exits, blocking paths, preparing for blood. Guest, Cassian repeated. Yes, guest. Visitor, whatever she is. She's not a guest. Voltan's brow furrowed. Then what? She's my mate. The words hit the hall like thunder. Mira's heart stopped. Voltan's face went through several colors. White, red, purple, before settling on a sickly gray. But there's no bond. She has no wolf. She can't be. Are you questioning me? No, of course not. I would never. Then perhaps. Another step. Cassian was close enough to touch now. Close enough to kill. You should explain why your hand was on her. It wasn't. I was just, be careful. 3 words. Soft, quiet, absolutely terrifying. Voltan froze. Cassian leaned in. His voice dropped to something barely audible. But in the dead silence, everyone heard. Be careful how you speak to my mate. The word hit Mira like a physical blow. Mate. Not future Luna. Not the woman who proposed. Not the healer he was teasing. Mate. The way he said it, like a vow. Like a truth, like something that had always been true, even when she'd been too blind to see. Voltan's hands rose in surrender. I meant no disrespect to either of you. I'll leave, now, immediately. You'll apologize. Of course, absolutely. Voltan turned to Mira. My deepest apologies. I overstepped. I was wrong. Please, get out. Mira's voice surprised her, but she meant it. Voltan looked at her, then at Cassian, then back at her. Then he walked, fast. The door slammed behind him. Silence stretched. No one moved. Then Cassian turned, walked toward her, stopped inches away. Those crimson eyes searching her face, her body checking for damage she couldn't see. Did he hurt you? No. Did he touch you? Almost, but She swallowed. I handled it. Something flickered in his gaze. Pride? Relief? Both? I know. His voice was still rough, still edged with violence. I heard you. You heard. Every word. His hand rose, cupped her face, gentle now, so gentle. You told him he didn't get to speak to you. You didn't back down. You didn't run. I don't run. No. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You don't. The hall was still watching. Mira didn't care. You called me your mate. Yes. In front of everyone. Yes. I'm not. Her voice cracked. I don't have a wolf. I can't be. That's not how it works. I know. Then why? Because. He leaned closer, forehead touching hers, breath mixing with breath. I've known since the moment you knelt, since the moment you offered me that ring, since the moment your heart started beating for me, even when your head was screaming no. Mira's eyes burned. That's not. You can't just decide. I'm not deciding anything. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'm telling you what already is, what's been true since the forest, what will be true until I die. His lips brushed her forehead, reverent, unavoidable. Mine. One word, one impossible, terrifying, wonderful word. And Mira, who had fought him for weeks, who had denied and argued and screamed, felt something crack open in her chest, something warm, something dangerous, something that felt terrifyingly like yes. Behind them, someone cleared their throat. The rest of the alphas are staring, Rafe murmured. Just so you're aware. Cassian didn't move. Let them stare. They're also placing new bets. Old Marta's offering 10-1 on a wedding before snow. Cassian's lips curved against Mira's forehead. Tell her I'll match those odds. You're betting on us again? I'm investing. Mira pulled back just enough to glare at him, but the glare didn't have teeth anymore, didn't have fire. He noticed. His smile softened into something devastating. There she is. What? My future Luna. Looking at me like she's finally seeing. Mira's throat tightened. I always saw you. No. He touched her chin. You saw the king, the threat, the man who wouldn't take no for an answer. His eyes held hers. Now you're seeing me. She didn't deny it. Couldn't. Because he was right, somewhere between the teasing and the pack and the way he'd just defended her like she was the most precious thing in his world. She'd stopped seeing the Alpha King. She'd started seeing Cassian. And Cassian? Cassian was terrifying in a completely different way, because Cassian made her want to stop fighting. Cassian made her want to surrender. I should hate you, she whispered. You should, he nodded. Do you? Mira looked at him, at the ring on his finger, at the man who'd just faced down an alpha for her, at the future stretching out before her, still uncertain, still terrifying, but suddenly filled with something she'd never expected to find. Home. No, she breathed. I don't. His eyes flared, and in front of every alpha in the Northern Territories, the feared king of Blackridge smiled like she'd just given him the sun. Then stop running. Mira swallowed, nodded, and for the first time since the forest, she stepped closer instead of away. The hall erupted, not in violence, in chaos. Wolves shouting, coins changing hands. Old Marta's cackle rising above the crowd as she collected her winnings. But Mira barely heard any of it, because Cassian's arms had wrapped around her, because his heart was pounding against her ear, because the most dangerous wolf in the north was holding her like she was something precious. And somewhere in the back of her mind a voice whispered, "This is real. This is happening. This is..." Does this mean I win the bet? Rafe's voice cut through the moment. Cassian's chest rumbled with laughter. Mira groaned. "I will end you," she muttered. "No, you won't." Cassian pressed a kiss to her hair. "You like me too much now." "I do not. Your heart says otherwise. I hate your heart." "No, you don't. I hate you." "Liar." Mira pulled back just enough to look at him. At his smile, at his eyes, gold again, warm again. Hers. And before she could think, before she could second guess, before she could talk herself out of it, she kissed him. Just a brush, just a whisper, just enough to feel his sharp inhale, his sudden stillness, his hands tightening on her waist. Then she pulled back. "That," she said shakily, "on doesn't mean anything." Cassian stared at her. The entire hall stared at her. And then he laughed, genuine, bright, free. "You," he said, pulling her close again, "are going to be the death of me." "Probably. And I'm going to enjoy every second of it." Mira smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. She let herself. Mira found him at the river, the same spot where everything had shifted, where he'd touched her chin and called her a liar, where she'd started seeing the man beneath the king. He stood with his back to her, moonlight painting silver across his shoulders. The ring glinted on his finger. He knew she was there. He always knew. "You're brooding," she said, "observing." In the dark, alone, by a river. She walked closer. "That's brooding." He turned. Those ancient eyes found hers, soft now, warm. "You followed me. You left the gathering early. People noticed. People notice everything in this pack. Old Marta wants to know if you're sick. She has money on your continued survival." His lips twitched. "Kind of her." "Not really. She bet against you living past winter." "That's actually generous. Last year she gave me 3 months. Mira stopped beside him, close but not touching. The river rushed past, cold and endless. Cassian. He went still. She'd used his name. Not Alpha, not King. His name. "I need to ask you something." "Anything." She turned to face him fully, forced herself to meet those eyes. "Why?" "Why what?" "Why won't you let this go? The proposal, the mistake, me." Her voice cracked slightly. "You could have any wolf in the territory, any woman in the north, beautiful ones, powerful ones, ones with wolves and pack connections and—" "Stop." The word was gentle, but firm. Mira stopped. Cassian moved closer, not teasing now, not playful, something else entirely. "You want to know why I kept the ring?" "Yes." "Why I followed you, teased you, refused to let you take it back?" "Yes." "Why I called you mine in front of every alpha in the north?" Mira's throat tightened. "Yes." He reached for her hand, wrapped his fingers around hers. Warm, steady, home. "Because I was going to ask you anyway." The world stopped. Mira stared at him. "What?" "Before the forest, before the rogues, before you knelt and offered me that ring." His thumb traced circles on her skin. "I was planning to find you, to court you, to—" He laughed softly. "Do this properly. That doesn't— You didn't even know me." "I knew enough." "What could you possibly?" "I knew you'd been here 3 years. I knew you'd never asked for anything. I knew you healed pack members without charging when they couldn't pay. I knew you sat with the dying, held their hands. I cried when they didn't make it." His eyes held hers. "I knew you were kind in a world that hadn't been kind to you." Mira's eyes burned. You watched me?" From a distance, at first. He stepped closer, then closer. "Then I started finding excuses to walk past your hut, to check on your patients, to—" He smiled ruefully. "Be anywhere you were. I never saw you. I'm good at not being seen." The Alpha King is good at lurking? Don't call it lurking. What would you call it? Strategic observation. Mira laughed. It came out wet and broken and nothing like she intended. You've been stalking me? Courting. There's a difference. There's literally no difference. In courting, the target eventually says yes. And in stalking, the target eventually calls the guards. He touched her face. You haven't called the guards. Maybe I should. Maybe. His thumb brushed her cheek. But you won't. Mira's breath caught, because he was right. She wouldn't, couldn't, not anymore. Why didn't you tell me, she whispered, before all of this, before the proposal and the bets and... Would you have believed me? She opened her mouth, closed it. No, she wouldn't have. A month ago, if the Alpha King had approached her with flowers and intentions, she would have assumed it was a joke, a trap, some elaborate cruelty. You needed to see me first, he said quietly. Not the king, not the threat, me. And the only way to do that was to annoy me into submission? Make you stop running long enough to look. Mira stared at him. At this impossible, infuriating, wonderful man. Joe, you're insane. Probably. You planned all of this. None of it. He shook his head. I planned to approach you slowly, gently, to earn your trust before I told you how I felt. His smile turned wry. Then you knelt in a forest and changed everything. The worst timing in history. The best timing. He lifted her hand, pressed his lips to her knuckles. Because it forced my hand, made me stop planning, made me just... He looked at her. Be with you, even when you were screaming at me. I didn't scream. You absolutely screamed. I raised my voice. Same thing. It's not... Mira stopped, laughed despite herself. I still want to kill you sometimes. Sometimes is progress. Last month it was always. It might still be always. No. He smiled. It's not. Damn him. He was right again. Mira looked at their joined hands, at the ring on his finger, at the river rushing past, carrying away everything that had come before. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. Be with someone, trust someone, let them. She swallowed. Stay. I know. I'm not good at it. I know that too. I'll probably mess it up. You will. He squeezed her hand. So will I. We'll mess it up together. Mira's eyes burned. No one had ever. You came here to confront me, he said softly. So confront me. Ask me whatever you need to ask. She looked at him, at the king who'd knelt in her doorway, at the man who'd stacked wood for an old woman, at the wolf who'd faced down an alpha for her. Do you mean it? She whispered. All of it? The mate claims and the mine and... Her voice broke. Me? Cassian's hands cupped her face, ungentle, reverent. Every word. Even when I'm difficult? Especially then. Even when I argue? It's my favorite part. Even when I... He kissed her forehead. Soft, slow, deliberate. I mean it. He breathed against her skin. I've meant it since the forest. Since before the forest. Since the first time I watched you hold a dying wolf's hand and promise them they weren't alone. Mira's tears fell. She couldn't stop them. Didn't want to. I don't have a wolf, she said. I can't be your mate. Not really. Not the way... You're mine. His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Wolf or not, bond or not, you're mine, and I'm yours, if you'll have me. He stepped back, reached for the ring on his finger, slid it off, and then the Alpha King, the most feared wolf in the Northern Territories, from the man who ate rogues for breakfast and alphas for sport. Dropped to one knee. Mira's hand flew to her mouth. Cassian, I should have done this weeks ago. He looked up at her, moonlight in his eyes, ring held between them. I should have found you properly, courted you properly, asked you properly. His voice dropped. But I'm not good at proper. I'm good at you, at knowing that my world got brighter the moment you knelt in that forest, at understanding that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the woman who argued with kings and threatened murder and never once backed down. Mira couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at the man on his knees in front of her. So I'm asking. He held up the ring, the silver band with tiny wolves etched along its surface, the one she'd offered in panic, and the one he'd kept in hope. Choose me again. The world held its breath. The river paused. The moon watched. Mira looked at the ring, at his face, at the future stretching out before her, not uncertain anymore, not terrifying. Home. She'd found it, in the most impossible place, with the most impossible man. You're really on your knees, she whispered. I'm really on my knees. The Alpha King. The man who loves you. Mira's heart cracked open, warm, bright, whole. Yes. The word came out before she could stop it, before she could second guess, before she could run. Cassian went still. Yes? Yes. She laughed, cried, shook. Yes. You impossible, infuriating, wonderful man. Yes, I'll choose you. Yes, I'll... He stood so fast she barely saw him move. His hands found her waist. His forehead touched hers. You said yes. I said yes. Say it again. Yes. Again. Yes, you absolute... He kissed her. Not the brush from the hall. Not gentle. Everything. His lips claimed hers like she was air and he'd been drowning. Like weeks of waiting and wanting and needing had finally found release. Mira's hands fisted in his shirt, pulled him closer, kissed him back with everything she had. He tasted like pine and river and forever. His arms wrapped around her, lifting her slightly, pulling her into his chest like he couldn't bear any space between them. Her fingers slid into his hair. His breath caught against her mouth. Finally, he breathed. Shut up. Make me. She did. The second kiss was slower, deeper, a promise instead of a claiming. His hand slid to her waist, fingers pressing into the curve like he was memorizing her, and hers traced the line of his jaw, the shape of his smile, because he was smiling, against her lips, smiling. You're impossible, she murmured. You love it. I love you. The words hung between them. Real, true, hers. Cassian pulled back just enough to look at her, really look, like she was the most precious thing he'd ever seen. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you. You arrogant, teasing, absolutely ridiculous. He kissed her again, and again, and again, until she was laughing against his mouth, tears still wet on her cheeks, heart so full she thought it might burst. Put the ring on me, she whispered. He went still. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. His hand shook slightly as he took her left hand, as he slid the silver band onto her finger, as he watched it settle into place like it had always belonged there. Tiny wolves, moonlight, forever. There, he breathed. Now everyone knows. Mira looked at the ring, looked at him. Mine, she whispered. His eyes flared. Yours. His voice broke. Always yours. She kissed him again, soft this time, sweet, home. In the distance, wolves began to howl. Not warnings, not territory calls, celebration. Mira pulled back, startled. They know? They always know. Cassian's arms stayed around her. They've been watching from the tree line for the last 5 minutes. Mira whipped around. 20 wolves sat at the edge of the forest, tails wagging, eyes bright. One of them, Rafe, in wolf form, was literally doing a happy dance. Oh, goddess. They're happy for us. They're spying on us. Same thing. How is that the same thing? Cassian's laugh rolled through the clearing, warm, bright, free. Welcome to pack life, future Luna. Mira buried her face in his chest. I changed my mind. I take it back. No, you don't. I absolutely do. Liar. I hate you. No, you don't. Mira looked up at him, at his smile, at his eyes, at the man who'd followed her and teased her and waited for her. I don't, she agreed softly. I really, really don't. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips. The pack howled louder. Mira laughed against his mouth, and somewhere in the moonlit clearing, surrounded by wolves and chaos, and the most impossible love she'd ever imagined, Mira Solene stopped running and started living. 1 month later, the wedding was chaos. Old Marta had organized everything, which meant there were betting tables at the ceremony, and someone was taking wagers on how long the vows would last. Mira's going to cry in under 3 minutes, Rafe whispered loudly. 5 silver says she makes it to 5. You're on. Mira heard every word. She also heard Cassian's low laugh beside her, felt his hand squeeze hers, watched his eyes crinkle with joy. You ready for this? He murmured. Ready to marry the most infuriating man in the north? That's me. Ready to spend the rest of my life arguing with a king. Also me. Ready to, she looked at him, at the ring on her finger, at the future stretching out before them. Be yours? His breath caught. Say that again. Be yours. Again. Yours. Yours. Ah, yours. Cassian kissed her, right there, in front of everyone. The pack erupted. Old Marta cackled, and Mira smiled against his lips and finally admitted the truth. Accidentally proposing to the Alpha King had been the most embarrassing moment of her life, but it was also the best mistake she'd ever made.